What's up, guys? So if you are working on your next SaaS app and you are not collecting emails, you are missing out on potential users and future customers. So in this video, I'll show you how you can add a newsletter sign up with ConvertKit and React so you can start growing your email list the right way. So let's quickly see an overview of what we'll be building. So you can see we have like an ad copy for a fiction company right here, and I can just enter my mail. So I can say buildersmusic free@gmail.com. So when I click on this join waitlist, we'll be sending the data to ConvertKit using Netlify serverless function. So if I click on this now, and after some time the email is gone, and you can see this message that says thank you for joining the waitlist. You can check your mail. So if I go to my mail right here, I can see this confirmation button, and I'll show you how you can edit this to fit your own needs. So if I click on this confirm button, we are going to get redirected to a new page, which again I'll show you how you can customize to fit your needs. So once this is done, I can close this out and I can go to my subscribers page and refresh, and hopefully I will see the subscriber that just added their email address. And if I click on that subscriber, I can see more info like their first name, if they added their first name, and other fields as well. And I can also delete subscriber, unsubscribe, or block that particular subscriber. And if I try adding that email again, so I guess let me spell this right, and try joining again, we'll get message that says the email is already subscribed. So this is what we'll be building, and let's dive right into it. All right, so I have VS Code open with an empty folder called newsletter -ConvertKit -YT, and as you can see there's nothing in it. So the first thing we'll be doing is that we'll be installing React using Vite. So we say npm create Vite at latest, then I'll use this period sign so that we can create it inside this empty folder, and I will select React. And for this tutorial I'll be using JavaScript. After that is done, I'll clear the screen and run npm I to install all the dependencies that we need. So this normally takes some time, and I'll see you when it's done. All right, so the packages has been installed. I'll clear my screen, and the next thing to do is to install Tailwind. You can see Tailwind, and we'll be using just the CDN. So I'll click on this one right here. I'll just copy this, and I'll copy this and go to my index.html file and paste it right here. And while we are there, let's just change this to newsletter ConvertKit, and this is not recognizing it as a word, so I'll quickly add it to my workspace. You shouldn't be getting this error, by the way. All right, I'll hit save, and I'll come to my v.config.js and I'll change the port. So I'll say server, and I'll change the port to 3000 because the default port, I think the default port is 5173, like so. We'll be using port 3000. So I can close this out and run our server saying npm run dev, and I will just open it on this port and bring it like so. All right, cool. So we'll just get rid of this boilerplate code. We can do that by going to the source directory, and since we're using Tailwind, I don't need any of these files anymore. Then this app directory, I will just say rafce by the way, this is an extension called ES7 code snippet. So if you go to the extensions tab and search for ES7 code snippets, this one right here. So go back to our file explorer. So the first thing we'll be doing is that we will just write out the text and the form fields like you saw earlier. So I can come right here. And by the way, this is not a Tailwind course, so I will not spend my time explaining everything. So give this a height of 100 VH. Then say text should be center, width should be full. Set a background of neutral. Let's do 950. Font will be sans. Set this to relative. Set this to flex. Item should be center, and justify should be center as well. This should be justify. All right, and inside this we also have another div with a class of max width of 800 pixels. For some reason that didn't show, so let me just bring out this class max width of 800 pixels should be inside. Then we center it, saying MX auto, add a padding of 4 and a Z index of 10. And with the new version of Tailwind, the version 4, you no longer need to use an arbitrary numbers for padding and margin. So initially, I think there's no padding 3. I don't think so. But now you can add any number you want instead of doing this arbitrary stuff right here. So inside this div, we'll have an h1, and we'll call this reserve your spot for the design system launch. So we'll give this class of text, and let's make it a big one. Font weight will be bold, text will be transparent, we'll add a background so that we can be able to clip the background color with the text, and also add a gradient as well. And we set this to the bottom, and we'll also state where it's coming from. So we say from neutral 200 to, it should be to neutral, I can't type today, what's happening, 600. And we'll set the text to center as well, and let's save it and see what we have so far. All right, cool. And if I go back, I can see we're having a weird sort of color right here. So let me go to my main. I don't need this anymore, so let me save. Let me close this. Let's see if that's gone. Okay, so that's gone. All right, so this design system will be inside a span, so I can say Ctrl+Shift+P, and I will hit enter. Make sure you are in this emmet so that we can be able to wrap this inside a span. And you can come right here and say class name should be text. I'll set it to this color, so give me a second, let me look for it. So FF4922. So let's see. Okay, yeah, this is the one. And this text size is quite small, so let's make it big. So I'll make this like 6XL. So for the P tag, you can say effortlessly manage all your subscriptions and data plans in one place. Join the wait list now. And waitlist is not a word, so I can quickly add that as well. Save, and this should have a class name of text neutral 500. Also add the margin bottom because of the form, and set this to have a max width of 700 pixels, and also center it as well. And we'll add a margin top and bottom of 2. Text will be large. Then we'll also center it as well. I can't type today, so let's save this, see what we have so far. Then from the form itself, we just use the form tag and we'll get rid of this action attribute and set the class name to flex items, the center, justify center. We'll add a gap of 4. Inside the form tag, we'll have an input which will be of type email, and let's make it required, and let's also add a placeholder, say enter your email. I'll also add the class name, but let's just put the class name at the first place here. So give it a class of width of 400 pixels. Color should be white. We'll add a padding left of 4, a height of 11. We'll also add a little border radius, and for the border we'll make it a bit thicker by saying 1.5 pixels. I'll make it white as well. So let's take a look. Okay, then for the button, I just set this to join with this for now. For the class, we'll set it to text of white. Cursor should be pointer. Also give it a background color of this color right here. So copy this and paste it right here. Let's set the border radius to be rounded of XL, and we'll set the padding left and right to 6 and padding top and bottom to 3. And while we are there, let's also set the type to submit. Alright, cool. Let's also add like a little margin to the H1, so I can just say margin bottom should be like 2. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is to be able to keep track of the email that the user enters. So we can do that by creating a state and storing it in that state. So I'll call this state email and say set email. It should be use state of an empty string, and right here we'll just pass in the value right here. So the value will be the email, and we can say on change, when we change the email, we want to be able to update it with the current value that is being passed right here. We also need to stop this form from submitting. So right now, if I click on join waitlist and maybe there's an email and I join the waitlist, you can see the form, the page is refreshing, and we don't want that to happen. So I can just come right here and say on submit, I can call this function handle submit, and we can create a function right here, say handle submit. This is going to be an arrow function, and it's also going to take an event. I can say event.prevent default. All right, so now if we try and add an email and click on join waitlist, you can see the page is no longer refreshing. So now we can be able to store that email in state. So the next thing to do is we want to grab that email and send it to our backend and then forward it to ConvertKit. So let's create the endpoint so that we can be able to verify the email before sending it to ConvertKit. So right inside this handle submit function, I'm going to mark this as an async because it's going to take some time to do. And we'll say try and add the catch block. This is going to be error, and for now let's just console log out this error. So inside this catch block, I'm going to create a variable called response, and we await it and say fetch, and we're going to create an endpoint called /API/subscribe. We'll be creating this endpoint in a bit, and the method will be post. Also the headers, let me just accept all this and just walk you through. So the headers will be of content type application JSON, and the body is just this email right here, and we are stringifying it before sending it. So we can now store this inside data and say response.json right here, and we also need to await this response. So I can save this, and before we create this endpoint, let's just add some validation so that we can see all the errors that might happen if we are not getting the right response. So right here, I'll be creating two more states. The first one will be is submitting. So set is submitting, and this will be a boolean of false. I'll also need another state, and I'll call this message and set message, and this will be use state, and this will be an object with a type property and a text property. So this type will either be an error message or a success message, and the text will also depend on the type of message. So you can come here and say if the response is not okay using this exclamation mark right here. So we can say set message and set the type of the message to be an error, and the text should be data.error, or let's just set this right here. And let's also stop the form from submitting, so we can just return right here. And if this is successful, so I can just copy this, paste it right here, and say this to success. I can just set this to the data.message. So this data.message is what we'll be sending from our backend once we don't have any errors. Then for this is submitting state right here, we just want to show a submitting text, but you can also add a spinner if you want to. So we can say set is submitting to true. So as soon as we submit the form, we set this to true, and we can add a finally right here and set it back to false. And basically what this finally does is that it sets this to false regardless if the form was submitted or not. So let's just use these two states. So we can come to this button, and let's make use of this. So we can first of all disable the button once the form is submitting, and we can, let me just cut this one out, and I can say if it's submitting, we can set the text to let me use this and say submitting, else this should be the default text. So this can be a spinner in your own case, so it depends on what you want right here. Then underneath this form, we're also going to add or show the message depending on what is happening right here. So we can say if there's a text, then using this logical operator, we can create a p tag. So we can say p tag, and inside the p tag we just pass in the message dot text, but for the class name we'll give this a margin top of 4, max width of 600 pixels, and we'll center it in the middle. We'll also add a padding of 4, a rounded of medium, and we'll add some conditions, which means that I think I need to change this to backticks. So this should be backticks, and we'll say if the message type is equals to an error, so if there's an error message, we want the text to be a certain color. So we can set the background to be red, and let's make it red 500 over 10, and the text should be red 200. Else we can set this to BG of green and just replace this with green, so the numbers are the same. All right, so now let's create this endpoint. And like I said earlier on, I said we'll be using Netlify serverless function, which is more like a lightweight alternative than using something like Express. So in this kind of situation, I personally think using Express is an overkill. So for us to be able to set that up, it's quite easy. You just need to install the Netlify CLI globally on your machines and say npm i-g netlify-cli. So I already have it installed, so I'm not going to install it again, and I'll urge you to do the same if you don't have it installed. And after that, you also need to create a netlify.toml file. So this should be netlify, and I will go to my notepad and just copy all this and paste it like so. All right, so I'll quickly run through what each of these codes are doing. So basically this build right here is telling Netlify to look for the serverless functions during the build process, and we don't really need this now, but I'll leave this. And it's also doing the same right here, and we're also specifying the framework we're using. This is very, very important, and this is the most crucial part right here, which is the target port, because we want to let the Netlify server to know the port we're using, so that it can proxy request to our port by giving us a new port. So the server has its own port and it's going to proxy a request to this our target port by giving us a new port. I hope that makes sense. We'll see more of that in a bit. So this redirect right here is basically telling us that, okay, we are using this /API/wildcard right here. So this is like a placeholder. So if I go back to our app.js, you can see we're using this /API. So that's what we're setting right here. But Netlify is actually reading this URL route right here. So this is the actual route. So I can get rid of this and just copy this one and use it right here, it's going to work fine. But this is more like a placeholder, so we don't have to write notify slash functions every time. And for this, I just realized that since we have these functions right here for development and build, we don't really need this one. Then this is mostly required when you're on deployment because we're just redirecting or match request to the index.html page. So that's just what this configuration file does. So we just need to create the functions directory right here, and inside this functions directory I'm going to create the endpoint. I'll call it subscribe.jx. So before we write the code for the backend, I'll quickly go to this app developers documentation. I'll leave a link to it in the description, so I'll just walk you through it, and I'll scroll down to forms, and I will go to add subscriber to a form, and this is just the instructions to follow. So you can see that they have an example request right here, and this is just the endpoints we'll need. I'll also need to grab our API key, and in this case they are saying we should just store it publicly, but I don't advise you do so. It's better to just keep it private. Then you just need to pass in the email right here, and you can also add optional parameters like the first name, other fields, and tags as well, but we just stick to the required ones, which is the API key and the email address. So I guess now is the time for us to create our ConvertKit account. So in case if you don't have an account, a link will be in the description, although the link is an affiliate link, so I will urge you to click it because it's going to help the channel a lot. So when you click it, the sign up process is fairly easy and straightforward. Once you are done, you'll be redirected to this page that I'm currently in. And once you're here, we just want to grab our own API key, and the API key is not something that I can easily change, so I won't be showing you guys mine, but I will be showing you how you can access yours. So click on settings and scroll down and click on developers. So once you click on these developers right here, you'll be able to see your API key. So there are two. Don't copy the secret one, just copy the one you are saying. So I'll quickly copy mine and get back to you. All right, so I'm in the developer settings, and you can't still see my key because it's underneath, but you see this your API key. You're not copying this one, you're only copying this one. So let me copy mine. So I'll go back to VS Code and I'll create an env file. So say .env, and I'll call this let me call this ConvertKit underscore API underscore key, and I'll paste my key. So I've pasted my key, and the next thing we want to do is to go back to this link right here, and if you check this URL, you can see that there's a form ID that is required. So in order for us to get that form ID, I'll go back right here and I'll click on grow and click on landing pages and form, and I will click on create form right here. So you can choose to select any format you want. We'll just go with this first one, and you'll be given a bunch of templates to choose from, although you can just use a template right here, it doesn't matter. But if you want yours to be customized according to the SaaS application you want, you can just select any one of your choice because it doesn't really matter. I'll just choose this first one, and the only thing that we need right here is just the form ID, which is this numbers right here. So I'll copy this, and I will talk more about this in a bit, and I will just hit save, and I will go back to my env file and I'm going to store it. All right, so I called mine ConvertKit underscore form underscore ID, so you can choose to use the same if you want to. Another thing you can also do is that if I hit on publish now and I just want to embed this link to my site, I can just copy this and this template will be on my website. So you can choose to do that as well. So there's another option. So now that we have that in place, we can start creating our function for the backend. So I'm going to call this say export default, and this is an async function, and this will take a request, and inside this function we just want to receive the email that is being sent. So to do that, we can just say const body, I will say await request or text, and we can then destructure the email by then passing this body. So the data that we are sending from our front end is being sent as stream. So we need to change it to raw text before passing it into a JavaScript object. So let's confirm if we are seeing that mail. So I can just console the log the email. So I can say email. I'll say email. All right, cool. So I'll open my terminal right here. And for this to work, we need to stop our server and we run netlify dev. So we're no longer using our initial port. So when you run this command right here, you can see that it's injecting the files we have on our environment variable, and we're starting the dev with vit. Remember, we specified this, and it's taking our local port and adding it to this port right here. So cool, and the function has been loaded. So if we come back right here, you can see the port is opened and we no longer need this one. So I can come here and say dev at gmail.com, and if I click on join waitlist, hopefully we get that email right here, so we can receive the email. All right, cool. So I think we can now go ahead and we can first of all check if an email was actually sent. So we can say if there is no email, then we'll use the response object from netlify. So we can say return new response, and this will be JSON just stringify, and we'll call this error, and let's say email is required. And we'll also need to specify the type of error as well. So we can say it should be a status of 400, and there should be a comma right here. I also need to add the headers as well. So the headers will be content type application JSON. Is it JSON or JSON? You can let me know in the comments. So if there's an email, we can now add a try and catch block. So this should be an error, and let's leave it like so for now. And we can go back to the docs right here. So we can just copy this endpoint. So let me copy this right here, and we can say const response. So basically what we did on our front end, and we'll say await, I'll say fetch, and this time we'll say I'll just paste in the link, and this form ID will be dynamic because it will be coming from our env file. But let me just add this right here, and inside this we can just set the method to be post. The headers will be of content thought I had autocomplete just now. Then for the body, we can set it to JSON.stringify, and we're not just stringifying the mail, we'll also be stringifying the API key. So what we'll just do is to come right here and I will say process, it should be lowercase, so process.env dot, I think it's called ConvertKit form underscore ID. Then for this, I'll have to go back and let's see how it was written here. So it's API key. So this will be API underscore key, and this will be process.convertKit API key, and also passing the email right here. We also need to install .env so that we can be able to use it on our functions right here. So I can just come to this new terminal and say npm install.env. Alright, that has been installed. So clear this out. I can now store the response in a variable. So say data, say response.json, and I always forget to await this. So say await. Alright, why we're having an error here? So something is expected. Okay, there should be a comma right here. Yes, okay, this should be outside. My bad, this should be outside like so. Alright, cool. So we can say if the response is not okay, we can just throw a new error, and let's just use this, but this time let's just change this to something better so we don't have the same images. We can just say failed to subscribe. Then we also want to check if an email has already been submitted. So we can just say check if email is already subscribed. So we can do that by using, and before I write this out, I just want to show you how it is done. So the way it works with ConvertKit is that if a user subscribes to your newsletter and they try resubscribing again, ConvertKit is not going to throw an error, but this state right here will be active. So what we are going to do in our case is that we are just going to check if that state is active and throw an error on our own end. But under the hood, nothing is really happening, because as long as that user is already active, it's not going to create a duplicate of it again. So to do that, we can just say if the data.subscription, so this right here is inside the subscription object, dot state, so we say dot state is equals to active. Then we want to return a new response. So I don't want to type this all out. In case I will just copy this one right here and paste it here, and this will be an error that says this email is already subscribed to the waitlist. And this should be wait. And I think we also need to change the status code, although I think it's 409 for conflict. I'm going to recheck that later on, but I think it's 409. So we also need to return a response if everything is successful. So we can say, let me just copy this right here and paste this here, and this should be message. Remember we used where's it out again? So use the data.message right here. So say message and we say thanks for joining a wait list. Then we use confetti and say an email has been sent to you, and this should be status of 200. All right, we also want to handle or catch different errors. So again, I will just copy this and I will paste this right here. And before that, let's just also console the log at the error. So say console.error and say ConvertKit error. So leave it like so. And for the response, this will be error, and let's just say something went wrong. Please try again. And this should be a server-side error, so this should be 500. All right, so let's test it out to see if we have any issues. So I will use this email I used initially. So I'll say buildersmusic@gmail.com. Click on join waitlist. You can see we're getting this message right here. Say thanks for joining the waitlist. An email has been sent to you. We also need to set a timeout so that this can go after a certain period of time, but we'll leave it like so for now. So if I go to that mail now and I click on this, all right, so the email actually went through, but this was the wrong email. So let me just paste in the right one that I have. So there's supposed to be a 3 right here. So if I click on join waitlist again, so I can go back now and hopefully, yeah, so it's showing right here. So you can confirm this and boom, we are officially confirmed on the list. And like I said I was going to show you how you can edit this page and the email as well. So what I will do is I'll quickly come right here, and for you to be able to do that, so you just need to go to settings, and this is where the customization starts from. You can start adding your own text right here. And if you go to this incentives tabs, what you need to do is that you can add your URL right here. So I can quickly add mine. So let me add this one and I'll paste it. And you can only add a URL that is be deployed. So you can't do this locally. You make sure your application is already deployed. Now hit save, and now I can go to subscribers. Before that, let's make sure we save this. So I can go to subscribers now, and you can see that that subscriber has been added. So I will quickly just delete the subscriber again. So let me delete this, and I'll go back to the landing page and forms, and I can just click on this one, this form that we just used. And if I go to the settings, I can go to the incentives, and I did talk about this edit email content. So if I click on this, you can see that this is what we saw. So I can just say thanks for joining the waitlist. So this is like the confetti right here. Cool. So once you are done, you can also customize all this to the way you want. So once you are done, just click on save and hit save here as well and here as well. Cool. So let's test it out, but this time before we test it out, let's just add the functionality for us to be able to clear out the feed once a user submits their email and this message. So we can go back to our code and go back to app.jsx, and first of all we can come right to the top and let's set the message type to an empty string. So we don't want to see this message anytime users try to add their email. Then we can come underneath and create a use effect, and we can say that if there is a message, so it can be either an error or a success message, then we'll create a variable to store the set timeout method, and this is going to run after, let's just do 3 seconds, which is 3000. There should be a comma right here. So inside this function right here, we can set the message type and text to an empty string. So basically reset this after 3 seconds, and underneath this we can just return and clear out the timeout to avoid memory leaks. And again, we want this use effect to run anytime there's a message. So we don't need to run once, we just need to run anytime there's a message. So I guess that's all. And lastly, we also want to clear out the email. All right, so let's try that again. I will paste in that email I copied. So this one right here, I can say join waitlist. I can see that the email is empty, and after 3 seconds that message was gone. And if I go back and let's refresh this. All right, so I didn't see the email. Let's try it one more time. So there's no space. All right, so join waitlist. Okay, thanks for joining the waitlist. Let's see if it came this time. So let me refresh. All right guys, so I've still not seen that mail, so let me try another mail to see if that's the issue. All right, so I'm not getting any errors from either my front end, nor am I getting errors from my back end, and it's even giving me a 200 status message. So here's what we're going to do. I will delete this template and we'll just create a new one. So say inline, and we'll still choose this one again. So make sure you copy this to replace it with your own form ID. Then for this, we'll just go to settings. Then for the incentives, we'll just edit this, and let me just get rid of all this one. Say we're joining the wait list, and click on save. And for this URL, I'll add this one right here and hit save, and also save this. So I'll copy this again so that I can go back to my VS Code. And all right, so I've replaced the env variable, so I'll just restart my Netlify development server again, and let's hope that works this time. So let's get rid of this one, and let's try that email again. So try this email again, and now we get the message. So let's see, and yeah, it's working. So you can see thanks for joining the waitlist, and when we confirm the subscription, it's going to take us to the URL that I added. All right, cool. So in case you don't know of ConvertKit, it's a template I'm working that lets developers like myself, so you and I, to focus on building cool projects instead of spending your time creating a portfolio from scratch. So I'll leave a link in the description for you to check it out. I have a free template for you to just go through to see if it's something you would actually spend your money on. Alright guys, so that's the end of the tutorial. Do where to leave any questions on the comment section, and if you have time, I'll highly recommend you watch this video that's showing up right now.